They warned me not to open the message alone, but I did. And what I saw, it wasn't just light, it was truth in its rawest form. My name is Elias Voren, and I am not special. I'm just like you. I'm 58, retired early, and thought I was done chasing mysteries, until the Pleiadian High Council contacted me 3 nights ago. This wasn't a dream. This was a transmission meant only for souls between ages 40 to 65 and beyond. Why us? Because something huge is unfolding, and our age group is the first line of activation. What I'm about to tell you might feel strange, but it will sound familiar to your soul. It started on a Tuesday night. No thunder, no flash, just a deep silence that seemed to press into my chest. I was alone in my study, sipping lukewarm tea, watching the moon hang over the pine trees outside. Then, just like that, all sound disappeared. Not a single car in the distance, no wind, not even the old clock ticking behind me. Then came the light, a faint, pulsing blue glow right over the middle of my desk. Not a beam, not a flicker, just a soft pulse, rhythmic and alive. I leaned in, heart racing like I was a teenager again. The moment I blinked, the light blinked back, and then I heard a voice inside my head, not my own. You have opened the corridor, Elias. This message is not random. This message is encoded in you. I backed away from the desk, trembling, but not in fear, in recognition. That voice, it felt like something ancient and parental, like something I had heard before being born. Suddenly, I saw what looked like symbols hovering in the air. They weren't from Earth, geometric, crystalline in shape, spinning slowly, then stopping mid-air. I had no idea what they meant, but I knew they were meant for me. This warning is for your generation, the 40 to 65 plus initiates. The time is near for your alignment. Alignment? The voice continued. You will not hear us in noise. You will hear us in stillness, because stillness is the gateway. Do not seek chaos. Seek the pause. As it spoke, I felt everything I'd ever doubted about spirituality collapse. It was like the cosmos itself had turned its gaze on me, silently saying, "Now you listen." When the transmission ended, the clock ticked again. Sound returned. But I wasn't the same, and neither are you. If you felt this same quietness lately, this message is not only mine. It's for all of us who feel like something is about to shift, but don't yet have the words for it. I used to chalk it up to age. That aching in the joints, the sudden waves of energy followed by complete exhaustion, the vivid dreams, the ringing in the ears. I told myself, it's just being 58, nothing cosmic about it. But that night, after the transmission, it all made sense. My bones weren't just aching, they were resonating. Have you ever felt that deep pulse in your chest, but no one else around you seems to notice it? Like the earth itself is humming and only you can feel it? That's not your imagination. That's your body syncing with the galactic shift. 3 days after the transmission, I couldn't sleep. I kept waking up at 3:33 a.m. My back felt like it was carrying a weight, but not pain, pressure, like something was pressing outward from within me. Not medical, not emotional, energetic. I called my friend Meryl, 62, a Reiki master. Meryl, I'm either going crazy or something's trying to come through me. She didn't even hesitate. It's the awakening, Elias. They're waking up the older souls first. Why us? Because we've been quietly absorbing wisdom our whole lives. We carry the codes of patience, endurance, and inner knowing. And now, those codes are activating. Elias, Meryl said, you always thought your pain was from aging. It's not. It's from resisting your real purpose. And that hit me hard, because I've always known I was meant for something more. Haven't you? This shift is not in the mind. It starts in the body. The Pleiadian voice returned later that night and said, "The bones are memory. They hold the truth of the stars. That is why your bones ache. They are trying to remember." After that, I started meditating more. Not fancy meditations. Just sitting in stillness and asking, what am I supposed to remember? And little by little, the answers came. Not in language, but in feelings. Purpose. Direction. A strange confidence I hadn't felt in decades. If your body is acting strange lately, if your bones feel like they're vibrating, stop assuming it's just age. It might be your soul stretching, waking up after a long nap. It still surprises me. Why us? Why those of us in our 40s, 50s, 60s, and beyond? Why not the younger generations, full of fire and change? The answer came directly during the second phase of the transmission. It was as if the council knew I'd question this. The voice of the Pleiadian elder was gentler this time, like a teacher speaking to a student who's finally ready. Elias, the 40 to 65 plus souls are the stabilizers. They are the anchors of humanity's evolution. And suddenly, it made sense. You see, when you're young, you're discovering. But when you reach our age, you've been shaped. You've seen the cycles, the crashes, the recoveries. You've witnessed spiritual highs and emotional lows. And through it all, you've quietly stored lessons that younger generations haven't yet touched. The Pleiadian Council isn't choosing us because we're louder or more active. They're choosing us because we've endured. They called our age group the timekeepers, people who remember the way things were, but also hold visions for how things could be. People who still believe in love, in legacy, in soul. In the transmission, I saw glowing orbs floating above people I knew, people all over the age of 40. They were lighting up like beacons, as if the council had switched on a galactic radar and our souls were responding. Your DNA is more than bloodline, the voice said. It is a blueprint of service. You volunteered to hold space. That's when I broke down and cried. Because how many times have you felt unseen in this modern world? Like everything is built for the young, for the trending, for the next new thing. But this message was different. This message said, you're not behind. You're just now being activated. And that changed everything for me. So if you're in this age range and you felt a sudden inner pull, a sense of urgency, a weird dream that just won't go away, you're being called. You're not late. You're right on time. Before the Pleiadian message, I would have never considered myself spiritually active. Sure, I'd read a few books, visited a healer once, but I never labeled myself as anything cosmic. But over the last 2 months, something strange has been happening. Not just to me, but to every person I speak to over the age of 40. We're dreaming differently. We're feeling things we can't explain. We're remembering emotions that aren't from this lifetime. And that's when the council gave me the answer I didn't expect. Those between 40 to 65 plus are spiritually ripe. They are not distracted by identity. They are anchored in reflection. You see, at this age, we begin to question everything. Our roles, our regrets, our rhythms. And that questioning is the soil for spiritual awakening. People think spirituality requires youth, agility, or intense focus. But in truth, it requires quiet clarity, which often comes only after you've lived through enough confusion. At 42, my friend Lena had her first out-of-body experience while doing laundry. At 55, my neighbor began painting fractals she saw in her dreams. Images she later discovered were Pleiadian star maps. These aren't coincidences. This age group carries a spiritual weight that the council needs now more than ever. We don't chase truth, we listen for it. We don't beg for miracles, we recognize them in ordinary moments. And more importantly, we no longer seek validation from the world. That makes us the perfect vessels for divine energy. Your age is not your limitation, they told me. It is your frequency range. The soul vibrates at peak intensity in the later chapters of Earth life. This shook me, because for the first time, I realized aging wasn't decay. It was divine amplification. So if you're 40 or older, don't downplay the strange things you've been sensing. That recurring number, that sudden chill, that voice in your dream, it's all part of your reactivation. This is the age of your great remembering. It was the fourth night after the first contact. I had just laid down to sleep when I felt my body go numb, but not in fear. It was a soft numbing, like I was detaching from physical reality. Then the room lit up in a soft gold light. No source, no bulb, just light. Elias, the voice came, more intense now. This is not to alarm you, but to awaken you. Suddenly a beam of frequency streamed across the room. Not sound, not language, just raw light. But inside it were emotions, warnings, downloads. I saw flashes, systems collapsing, oceans rising, people wandering with vacant eyes. The light carries memory, the council said. This warning is wrapped in the light stream. All who are ready will decode it through their hearts, not their minds. And that's when I realized they were not warning the mind, they were warning the soul. This wasn't about politics or media headlines. It was about a dimensional shift, something so enormous, it could not be explained in human words, so they sent it in light. For days after that, I felt strange. My heart would beat faster for no reason. I'd start crying while looking at trees. I'd feel a buzzing in my ears, like static from a forgotten cosmic radio. Meryl, my friend, called me in tears one morning. Elias, I just had a dream where my body exploded into starlight. They told me I had 3 months to adjust my energy or I'd fall behind. These light frequencies are activating those ready to transition, not to death, but to a higher bandwidth of reality. And if you felt these things too, random nausea, flickering lights, electronics going weird around you, it's not coincidence. The warning is not of doom, the council reminded me. It is of readiness. Those who carry the ancient flame must begin to burn brighter now, and that includes you. It was the strangest dream I've ever had. I was walking in a desert, endless sand, sky swirling in colors I couldn't name. Suddenly, I came upon a stone table. Floating above it were symbols, a glowing script of pure energy, not carved, but alive. I reached toward it, and the moment my fingers touched the air beneath the code, it flashed into my mind. I woke up gasping for breath, drenched in sweat. But I remembered it perfectly, a sequence of 12 sigils pulsing in gold and blue. I drew them on a notepad. When I showed them to Meryl the next day, she turned pale. Elias, these match the Atlantean frequency gates I've studied for years. How would you even know that? I didn't, until now. That night, the council returned. This code, they said, is an activation key. It's embedded in your dream state because your waking self still doubts the truth. They explained that many between 40 to 65 plus are receiving these codes now, through dreams, flashes of memory, even symbols we doodle unconsciously. These aren't random. These are awakened soul keys, unlocking ancient parts of our DNA that were dormant until now. It's like we've been carrying a sealed vault inside us, and now the dreams are the key. I started seeing the symbols in everyday life, in cloud shapes, on license plates, even in cracked paint. Not hallucinations, synchronicities. Pay attention to what you draw when your mind wanders, the council instructed. Your subconscious knows the path before your mind catches up. If you've been dreaming strange symbols, scribbling unusual shapes, or waking with a feeling that you saw something important but forgot, you're receiving the codes too. write them down. They will start to make sense. There's something I need to confess. For years, I ignored the term starseed. It sounded too sci-fi, too far out for someone like me, a former accountant who liked jazz and gardening. But the Pleiadians had other plans. On the 7th day, I received a download so intense it brought me to my knees. You are not remembering stories, Elias. You are remembering your origin. They called us the Forgotten Starseeds, souls who volunteered long ago to incarnate on Earth, not to fit in, but to wake up precisely during times like these. Why now? I asked. Because the soul contract said you'd forget. But now, it's time to remember. Since then, I've discovered something shocking. Almost everyone I know over 40 has had moments where they felt alien to this world, like they never truly belonged. That feeling of not being seen, not being understood, that strange homesickness for a place you can't name, that's not depression. That's cosmic memory loss. And now, it's reversing. The council showed me images, souls like seeds sleeping underground. They said this year's energy is like sunlight on ancient soil. The seeds are stirring. Meryl told me she's hearing humming sounds in her meditations. Another friend, Theo, keeps dreaming of being inside ships made of light, and I realized this is bigger than a midlife crisis. This is midlife awakening. The starseeds forgot so they could learn Earth's pain, said the voice. Now, they must wake to heal it. And here's the kicker. If you've been questioning your job, your relationships, your entire sense of identity lately, it's not madness, it's activation. You're not late. You were just waiting for the cosmic alarm clock. It started subtly. First, I couldn't tolerate noise the same way. Crowded places made me dizzy. Small talk felt unbearable. I thought maybe I was just becoming grumpy with age. But then came the dreams, the visions, the intense buzzing in my ears, the lights flickering when I walked into a room. I mentioned it to Meryl, and she just smiled. Welcome to your awakening symptoms. The Pleiadian High Council had warned this would happen. Your physical body must recalibrate to match the new light frequencies. This creates symptoms, not as punishment, but as proof of transition. Here's what I've experienced, and if you're in your 40s to 60s, you probably have too. Random body heat or chills, pressure in the forehead or chest, feeling like time is speeding up or slowing down, intense emotional waves out of nowhere, sudden bursts of energy, followed by deep fatigue, strange food cravings or aversions, vivid dreams and déjà vu. These aren't illnesses, these are upgrades. The system must purge what is not aligned, they told me. You are becoming lighter, literally. I started keeping a log of symptoms. The more I paid attention, the more I realized they followed cosmic cycles. Full moons, solar flares, Schumann resonance spikes. And I wasn't alone. Meryl described feeling like she was walking between worlds during her morning walks. Theo said electronics stopped working whenever he got emotional. The body, said the council, is the last part of the soul to awaken. Be patient with it. So if your body is acting strange, your sleep is off, your emotions are unpredictable, don't rush to numb it. Sit with it. Ask, what is my body trying to tell me? Because that's where the awakening begins. If someone told me last year that my back pain, insomnia, and stiff joints were a spiritual upgrade, I would have laughed. But I'm not laughing anymore. Because every time I thought I was getting old, the Pleiadians showed me a truth that turned everything upside down. Elias, the human body is not breaking down, it is breaking open. I was sitting in my backyard when I heard it. No flashing light this time, just a whisper that rode the breeze. You see decline, we see evolution. That same week, I noticed something odd. Despite my aches, my reflexes had sharpened. I was more alert, more tuned in. I could feel people's emotions before they even spoke. I'd sense phone calls before they came. It was subtle, but it was real. And then the dream came. In it, I saw my body shed a layer of skin, but it wasn't grotesque. It was luminous. Beneath it, I wasn't younger. I was lighter. My bones hummed. My heart beat like a drum in rhythm with stars. When I shared this with Meryl, she nodded calmly. They're activating your crystalline body. I asked her what that meant, and she said, your cells are shifting from carbon-based density to crystalline memory. Your body is learning to hold more light. It sounded like poetry. But deep down, I knew it was true. I stopped seeing my aging as decay. I started seeing it as transition. Those between 40 and 65 plus hold the map, the council said. Their physical vessels are the bridge between the old Earth and the new frequency Earth. The sagging skin, the creaking knees, the brain fog, it's not the end. It's the transformation. And once I began to believe this, everything changed. I started speaking kinder to my body, drinking more water, sitting in silence, not to escape, but to listen. Because the body is not just carrying us, it's becoming something new. The strangest thing began happening after the 9th transmission. I started having memories of people I never met, or maybe I had? Faces would flash during meditation. Moments of deep emotion would hit me during regular conversation, like I was meeting someone I made a promise to long ago. The Pleiadian High Council explained it clearly. The veil is thinning. Soul contracts made before Earth lifetimes are returning. Those you agreed to guide, teach, heal, or awaken are being drawn back to you. This wasn't philosophy. This was happening. I ran into an old friend at a cafe. We hadn't spoken in 20 years. As soon as our eyes met, we both paused. I dreamed about you 2 nights ago, he whispered. Same here, I replied. We sat in silence before he finally said, You said I'd find you when the blue light returned. I nearly dropped my coffee. How could that be possible? The contracts are not of the mind, the council said. They are stored in your energy. When the right frequency is reached, the contract activates. Many of you may be feeling this right now. A sudden urge to contact someone from your past. Random people entering your life again. Emotional connections that feel older than this life. That's not coincidence. That's cosmic recall. I kept seeing the same number, 144. Meryl told me it was connected to the 144,000 light workers prophesied to awaken humanity. Whether literal or symbolic, it stirred something inside me. You made promises before entering this life, the voice told me. Not all were meant to be remembered. Until now. You may not have all the details, but if you feel pulled toward a mission, a person, a place, follow that tug. It's the soul realigning with what it once agreed to. Don't ignore these nudges. They're the roadmap home. I thought I was losing my mind. One morning, I put my keys on the counter, walked into the living room, came back. They were gone. Minutes later, I found them inside the fridge. Another day, I clearly remember having a full phone call with Theo. He insists it never happened. I even repeated what he said word for word, and he stared at me, spooked. These are not signs of age, the council assured me. You are experiencing temporal overlays, a symptom of shifting timelines. At first, I didn't understand. But then came the memory glitches. I remembered a store on my street that had always been blue. One day, it was red, not newly painted, just like it had always been red. I asked the owner. He said it was never blue. These were not Mandela effects. These were timeline fractures. Your soul is moving between dimensions, they explained. At this age range, you are shedding the limits of linear time. So if you're feeling lost in time, if things seem slightly off, if you remember things that others don't, it's not dementia, it's dimensional recalibration. You're shifting. I started keeping a reality journal. Every time something felt glitchy, I wrote it down. Patterns emerged. Most shifts happened after emotional breakthroughs or just before solar storms. Time, as we know it, is unraveling. Not as destruction, but as expansion. Soon you will remember that time bends to the heart, not the clock, the voice told me. And I realized something. We've been trained to measure life, but not feel it. If your clocks don't make sense lately, if your past feels closer than ever, if you sometimes feel like you're living two lives at once, you're not broken. You're awakening beyond time. I didn't know April would feel like a portal, but ever since the first of the month, something's been thick in the air. It's like walking through invisible waves of vibration, subtle but constant. I feel it in my sleep, in my bones, in conversations that suddenly turn deeply spiritual out of nowhere. Then the Pleiadian High Council revealed it. April is a gateway month. The frequency of Earth aligns with the stargate between 12 and 21. Those ready will feel the invitation to cross. Cross into what? I asked that question with desperation in my voice. Into your next version, into your purpose, into the phase your soul agreed to complete. They weren't speaking of death. They were speaking of rebirth. During the second week of April, I began waking up with songs in my head, melodies I'd never heard. I wrote them down. Later, Meryl told me they matched Pleiadian tuning frequencies used to activate energy centers. In April, the body will feel heavier, they said. Not because of burden, but because of downloaded energy anchoring into the form. Everything started to accelerate. Random tears, old wounds surfacing, feeling suddenly called to forgive people I thought I was done with. It wasn't emotional chaos. It was energetic alignment. I met a stranger at the library who began speaking to me about starlight and water memory. She said, "I think we made a pact in Lyra." I laughed, but deep down, I didn't doubt her. This April, the council whispered, many will receive their final nudge. You must walk through it bravely, even if it means walking alone. So if you feel restless, if April feels different, if you're drawn to nature, stillness, or moments of reflection, it's not random. It's your invitation to cross the gateway. And the door? It's already open. They told me I was carrying a device inside my body. Not mechanical, not invasive, something ancient, biological, hidden. It was during a meditation under the full moon when the message came through. The sky had that quiet glow, and I felt a vibration along my spine, like soft fingers running over my skin. Elias, you are seated with remembrance. Buried within your DNA is a galactic instrument, a receiver, a transmitter, a bridge. I sat upright. My whole chest felt like it was vibrating. I could see colors behind my closed eyes, spirals, waves, crystalline patterns that I somehow knew weren't just visual effects. They were data. The Pleiadians continued. When your soul chose to incarnate on Earth, we encoded your DNA with a dormant template. That template is now reactivating. It will unlock wisdom not learned, but remembered. In that moment, I felt tears rise up, because I always wondered why I had such unreasonable empathy, why I could feel what people didn't say, why I'd cry at music I'd never heard before, or long for places I'd never been. They explained that this Pleiadian device was not a thing to be removed or touched. It was an energetic blueprint, like a spiritual technology. It's what allowed me to receive their messages, and they made it clear. Those between 40 to 65 plus are activating this same template. They are now ready to process multidimensional frequencies. I started meeting people who confirmed this without even knowing what they were saying. One man in his 50s said, "I've started painting constellations I've never seen, but I know them." A woman in her 60s told me, "I keep hearing a language when I'm in the shower. I think I'm remembering it. These are not accidents. The device inside you is waking up." You may feel heat in the spine, tingling in your neck, fluttering in your chest. Don't dismiss it. That's the system realigning. The world taught you to fear aging, but they never told you that aging is when the real equipment activates. You were built for this. I was sitting alone one evening, feeling heavy, not from energy, just from life. Memories flooded in. The choices I didn't make, the people I let go, the dreams I shelved. And a quiet voice inside whispered, "Is it too late?" I didn't even speak aloud, but the Pleiadian Council responded, clear, strong, immediate. No soul between 40 to 65 plus is ever too late. Regret is not your truth. Regret is your teacher. It hit me so hard I gasped. Because we live in a world that says, if you haven't figured it out by 40, you missed your chance. If you haven't succeeded by 50, you're falling behind. But the council was adamant. Your soul begins true integration after 40. This is not decline, it is ignition. They showed me visions. A woman at 63 starting to teach energy healing. A man at 58 remembering a Lemurian chant he once sang during planetary alignment. People in their so-called later years becoming lighthouses. Regret only exists when you believe your time has passed. Rebirth begins when you understand. You are time. After that night, I sat with my regrets. I didn't run from them. I listened. And to my surprise, each one whispered back a lesson I had forgotten. The relationship that failed? It taught me boundaries. The job I quit? It taught me sovereignty. The fear I carried? It taught me depth. The council said, each regret is a doorway. Walk through it and you will find power. And I believe them now. So if you're reading this and you're carrying should have beens, breathe. You didn't come here to be perfect. You came here to remember, rebuild, and rebirth. Even if it begins at 65, especially then. This is where the story turns urgent. I didn't want to share this last piece at first. It felt too big, too wild, too impossible. But the council insisted they must know Elias. Before the next solar pulse, they must choose their alignment. I asked, when is it coming? They didn't give me a date, only this. Soon enough that delay is dangerous, late enough that there's still time. Then they showed me an image, like a solar flare, but wrapped in blue light. It wasn't destruction, it was activation, but only for those who were ready. The pulse will amplify who you are, not who you pretend to be. That one sentence changed everything for me, because it meant that the universe isn't judging us, it's revealing us. In that moment, I understood what must be done. You don't need to move to a mountain. You don't need to become a monk. You just need to be honest with yourself. Clear your inner space. Forgive what you've been holding. Say yes to the unknown. The pulse is an energetic mirror, they said. If you're holding light, it will expand it. If you're holding fear, it will magnify it. Choose now. I sat in meditation and made a vow, not to anyone else, just to my soul. I choose light. I choose readiness. I choose to remember. They responded immediately. Then you are sealed for the shift. Walk forward. So here I am, not as a master, not as a prophet, just a 58-year-old man who answered the call. And if you're reading this, it means you're being called too. Before the solar pulse comes, align with what is true. Because when the light hits, it won't ask for permission. It will simply reveal what's inside you.